Hey, it's Dave Allen, the dating specialist here. In this video, I'm going to be talking about the first episode of season 25 of The Bachelor. So, reality TV shows like The Bachelor that deal with relationships provide me with some specific scenarios I can respond to and teach principles. So, that's why we're doing this. Now, you can't see me right now, but I'm putting the word reality in air quotes. It's hard to call it reality TV. As we know, there is a lot that is not tied to reality, very much outside of a reality, at least hopefully outside of most of our realities. But there are some things that we can definitely relate to as well. Now, as I talk through my impressions, I'll be speaking to Matt James, the Bachelor, as if he were my client. So keep that in mind. As I talk to Matt and as I talk about the women that he's dating, with both Matt and the women, I want to give them the benefit of the doubt. We have to realize we don't have a lot of data points here. The producers of the show are using specific clips to highlight the stories they want to tell. And so what we're seeing on TV isn't the full story. So I'm going to try not to jump to too many conclusions, but I may not be able to help myself sometimes. With that preface, let's get started. So how about that Matt James anyway? Is he super sexy or what? And it seemed like the producers of the show couldn't show him with his shirt off enough, and I don't blame them. I watched the episode with my wife, and bless her heart, she is really good at lying to me. I still don't believe her whatsoever. But, she's telling me things like, no, I like you better with a shirt off. She said it straight-faced. I couldn't believe it. And that's one of the many reasons that I love her so much. So, Matt, you are the Bachelor this season. Congratulations. A few things about you. You grew up in North Carolina. You're a commercial real estate broker in New York City. You do volunteer work with kids. You grew up with your mom and older brother. Your parents split up when you were young. I wonder, as a dating and relationship consultant, I look at that and ask the question, could that have had some impacts on your relationships now, in the past, in the future? And I'm guessing probably the answer to that is yes, to one degree or another. Your mom raised you in a good Christian household. By the way, I think your mom is fantastic. Just my initial impression of her, she seems like a great mom and it seems like she's done a great job. And my overall impression of you is you're just an all-around good guy, a great guy with a good heart. And you're someone who cares deeply about people. And I think some of that will come into play as we continue on through this season of The Bachelor. Some other things I see in you, you're somewhat of an overachiever. You've accomplished a lot in your life. You played football in college. You're successful in your business, etc., etc., etc. I'm also sensing some perfectionism, and that would lead to you being an overachiever. You definitely have a desire to please people, and you put a lot of pressure on yourself. Here's some of the things I've noticed that give me these insights. In terms of you being an overachiever, perfectionist, desire to please people, putting pressure on yourself, feeling anxiety, here's some of the things that gave me insights into that. Before meeting the women, you said some things like, I'm extremely nervous. What did I get myself into? And you said to the host, I hope I don't let you down. When you were giving your opening speech to the group of women as a whole, you said, now I'm starting to feel the pressure to impress them all. I guess this was before you started the speech. I'm starting to feel the pressure to impress them all. I am beyond nervous. You said that you're thinking that you need to be the perfect person and that you try to present yourself as someone who has it all together, but you don't. At one point, you're asked a question about being the first black bachelor, and your comment was, I don't want to piss off black people or white people. How do I please everybody? So again, we see this overachiever, this perfectionist, this desire to please people, and putting a lot of pressure on yourself. In regards to your relationships and some of the patterns that are indicated so far, you're asked the question by the host, have you ever been in love? And you said, I thought I had, but my views have changed. And you made some other interesting comments such as, every time I get super close to a woman, I feel myself backing up. You also mentioned that you've had some struggles in being vulnerable in the past. At one point you said you have fallen back every time it is time to take the next step. You said that you fear being heartbroken. And as you said that, I almost wondered, is your bigger fear being heartbroken? Or is your bigger fear breaking the heart of the person you're dating? If so, we'll see that play out this season. And that has to do with where you are on the spectrum in terms of your attachment patterns. And that's going to have a big impact on you and your relationships. As we look at the spectrum of attachment patterns, On one side, you have anxious attachment, where the main question, the driving question is, can I get him or her? I don't know that I necessarily, at least in this phase, see you as being someone who tends to be anxiously attached. On the other side of that spectrum is avoidant attachment. And the main question for avoidant attachment, for those that tend towards avoidant attachment, is, do I want him or her? And I think you may find yourself in that kind of a phase. You have that anxiety in relationships. You mentioned, again, every time I get super close to a woman, I feel myself backing up. And that is what happens a lot of times with avoidant attachment. It can manifest itself in a couple different ways. One is if you're more the perfectionist type, you're going through the motions but not feeling the emotions. And then you start wondering, hey, I'm not feeling the right things here, so this must not be the right thing. But really what it's about is you're putting too much pressure on yourself. The other way it may manifest is you may feel like, hey, I'm feeling a lot of pressure. I need to withdraw and run and get out of this situation. You may feel frozen, stuck, trapped, disconnected, or you may feel indifferent, passive, less engaged and available, passionless, less attracted, worried about flaws and compatibility. All these things are things that can come with avoidant attachment. And if I were to guess, that's where I'd guess at this point that you are. Again, I don't have a lot of data points. We'll see what plays out this season. To learn more about anxious and avoidant attachment, click the link in the top right corner and you can see a video that I've put together going into a little bit more detail on those things. So you've got anxious attachment on one side, avoidant attachment on the other, and secure attachment kind of lies somewhere in the middle of those things. So Matt, I've had a chance to talk to you a little bit. I do want to actually address some of the women. You obviously met with 32 different women in this episode. I can't address all of them. I want to address just a few of them and some of the things they did. They went through some very creative means to meet you. And I want to talk about some of their tactics and how well those things worked. Saneh, and I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right. It's Saneh, the IT consultant from Denver, Colorado. You did kind of a funny play on words of being the greatest of all time, the GOAT, and to do that, you wore goat feet. So under your dress, we see that you're wearing goat feet, which is super funny and shows your sense of humor. But what I'd recommend in this type of situation, while it's good to be funny, it's good to stand out and you want to be memorable. The goat feet definitely were not attractive, not sexy, not a great move for you, and it would have been better to find something that's memorable, funny, and attractive. Marilyn, for you, one of the things that you said as you met Matt was, I feel like everything in my life has brought me here to meet you. Now, that's a powerful statement, but it puts too much pressure on the situation. Now, it may be memorable, but it may be memorable in a bad way. And if I'm right that Matt has some avoidant attachment tendencies, that's going to put pressure on him, and that's going to end up pushing him away. Cassandra, a social worker from Newport Beach, California, you did something kind of similar, something that puts a little pressure on him. You wore a football jersey that had Mrs. James on the back, insinuating you guys getting married. And that's just a little bit too much pressure too soon. And if there's one thing that can kill relationships right from the get-go, it's when you put too much pressure too soon. And pressure, internal or external, can feed into anxious and avoidant attachment. Now, Katie, yours was definitely memorable. You said, hey, I brought something from home. This got me through a lot. I was hoping to pass the torch to you. And then you hand Matt your vibrator. Now, you showed your sense of humor. You showed your spunkiness with this. But I'd say you don't know, when you're first getting to know someone, that isn't the move that I'd recommend. You don't know what impact that might have on someone. It was definitely a gutsy move, but I don't know if I'd recommend it for the very first meeting. Now, Matt, I'm going to turn back to you and address you more directly now, talking about the women that you met and identifying a couple of situations where I saw some potential red flags, and also talk about your pick for the first impression rose. So we were just talking about Katie. We were just talking about the vibrator. kind of a funny thing, a little out of control. But one thing I noticed when Katie came in and wanted individual time, Mari was the one talking to you at the time, and Katie comes in and she taps Mari on the shoulder with the vibrator. Mari was kind of offended about that, was a little bit grossed out about that, and rightfully so, I think. Now, one thing that could indicate in terms of Katie, not necessarily because these are high pressure situations, and so you have to keep that in mind. She may just not have been thinking of, hey, maybe I shouldn't touch someone on the shoulder with a vibrator. But doing that definitely is crossing a boundary. It shows a potential lack of empathy. Now, Matt, one of the things I'm really going to be talking to you a lot about is when you're deciding if a relationship is right for you, the very first question you're going to ask is, am I safe? And to determine, am I safe, what you're going to look for is empathy, self-control, and personal responsibility. It is going to be much better to be in a relationship with someone that has that empathy, self-control, and personal responsibility in good supply. If they struggle in any one or more of those areas, that's going to be real hard and real difficult to deal with in a relationship. So that's one of the main things I have my clients look out for. And again, with this situation with Katie, tapping Mari on the shoulder with a vibrator, this is a small red flag, I grant you. But again, it could say, hey, Katie's not having empathy for what Mari might feel about getting tapped on the shoulder by the vibrator. Now, where I saw the bigger potential empathy problem was with Victoria. Victoria is quite the character. She comes in carried in on a throne. She wears a tiara. She brings a crown to put on her king. She says, as she comes in, she says, "The queen has arrived, bitches." Now, that definitely shows a little pride. Could be interpreted as confidence, but to me, it brought up some concerns. Now, the bigger concern came when you were having your individual time. You don't have much time with each of these women. There are a number of women that may not even get a chance to talk to you. Victoria gets a chance to talk to you, and then she comes to talk to you again a second time, interrupts somebody else's time to come and talk to you. Now, she sees that as, hey, I'm being a good marketer. I'm making an impression. Okay, I can give you some benefit of the doubt there, but I have to say, I see this as a potential red flag. You came to talk to him again, and that seems to indicate this feeling of the rules don't apply to me. And that's very common in someone who is emotionally immature. The rules don't apply to them, and someone who doesn't have empathy. Victoria said, I don't feel bad going to see Matt twice. And in talking about the other women, she said, they are idiots for not doing it. Again, lack of empathy, some red flags I'm seeing there. Matt, watch out for that one. I was a little bit surprised, actually, that you selected her, that she was one of the people that got a rose. And Matt, in giving you the benefit of the doubt, I'm just hoping maybe it was the producers who pushed you a little bit to choose Victoria because, well, let's be honest, she's going to add some more drama to the show. So maybe Victoria wasn't the best pick, in my opinion. And again, that's on very few data points. But I thought you made a great pick in terms of your first impression rose with Abigail. She seems like a really sweet girl, and you seem to be looking for the right kinds of things. You said, I challenged the girls to be vulnerable. And you appreciate that she was vulnerable. You can see she's a fighter. She's gone through some hard things. And you give her that first impression rose. So great pick on that one. So yeah, Matt, overall, well done. And I can't wait to see what happens the rest of this season. Good luck. So those are some of my thoughts on this first episode on season 25 of The Bachelor. Feel free to tell me your thoughts in the comments below. If you are struggling to find lasting love, set up some time with me and let's have a chat. I do video conference sessions with clients all over the world. Click the link down in the description to schedule some time with me. Don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe to my channel, and ring that notification bell.